Hey guys, welcome to the Driven Not Given podcast. And today we're going to go through the Lamborghini story. This is also a movie review, but there's so many lessons to learn from an entrepreneurship point of view, from a perseverance point of view. So stay tuned. We're going to get into it. All right, guys. So I was at home watching a movie with my wife, as we often enjoy. We're having a glass of wine. We have some Pinot Noir. And we're watching this movie, right? And I love the actor in this movie. He usually comes out in like fight movies and stuff. And he's got a show on Netflix called Fight World. And the guy's awesome. So I was very intrigued by him playing the character. You know, it's a completely different character to what he normally plays, which was the owner of Lamborghini, Ferruccio Lamborghini. And so as he's doing this, the first thing that comes to my mind, we all know Lamborghini, right? We all know that that's like the pinnacle of cars, exotic cars, fast cars and whatnot. One of the most beautiful cars in the world. And before I get into this review, I very often mention in my trainings, I ask, what is your favorite Lamborghini commercial? Then I pause. And people think, you notice when people think, they kind of look up and stuff, right? And they're thinking. And I say, let me stop you right there. You don't have a favorite Lamborghini commercial. The reason being is because Lamborghini doesn't make commercials. Because the people that buy Lamborghinis are not out there watching TV. They're not planted on their seat watching TV, scrolling to the channels, right? And so I've been saying that for many, many years because, yes, Lamborghini is that higher caliber. So it's a very intriguing story of Ferruccio Lamborghini and how he started Lamborghini, what inspired him, his beginning. So that's what we're going to get into today. So the movie starts off with he goes to war and he's actually a mechanic in the military. But he started off as a farmer. His family, was a farmer family. I think they grew grapes and stuff and in Italy. And so when he comes back from the war, his family's very happy to see him. His brothers and his family embrace him. His father looks at him very serious as he's getting emotional and he hugs him and whatnot, right? Obviously, there's going to be some spoilers here. So if you haven't seen the movie, I'm letting you know there's going to be some spoilers here. So here's what happens, though. He tells his father, and his father's, farming, right? He's doing some work in the farm. So Ferruccio's helping him out, and he says to him, Father, I want to go out there and do something that's going to help you and every other farmer. I can build a better tractor, which is half the size, and it costs half the amount of money, and it's more efficient in gas. And the father says to him, Ferruccio, you are a farmer. What are you doing? And Ferruccio responds to his father and he says, I wasn't a farmer in the army. I was a mechanic in the army. I've learned some things in the army, in the military, and I know that I could do this. So the father's very against it. The father has a very limited, and by the way, I don't think the father meant bad. The way that the movie portrayed it, in my opinion, he didn't mean bad. And here's the deal. When it comes to entrepreneurship, a lot of you guys may be at a point where you see, family members don't believe in me. Family members don't support me. And I will say this, and I say this all the time. You will make a lot more money with strangers than you do with friends and family. Strangers in your entrepreneur's business will very often be the ones that support you way before your friends and family do. It's just the way it is. Probably part of the reason is that strangers don't know of some of the things that you did in the past. Maybe, when you were younger, you weren't very serious about stuff, or you got in trouble very often and whatnot, and your family did. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But the bottom line is, in entrepreneurship, that was a perfect example of what many entrepreneurs face. Whether you start a traditional business, whether you are in the sales, world, in the network marketing world, whatever the case may be. I've got realtors that tell me when I became a realtor, my family didn't support me. My own wife didn't support me. My parents didn't support me. They say I'm wasting my time. It's commission only. People in the network marketing world say, hey, JC, yeah, man, I mean, my friends and family, they don't believe in me. They tell me that it's a pyramid scheme. They tell me that I'm wasting my time. They tell me that it's a scam. Listen, here's the bottom line. There's people that open up a traditional business and they say my own family didn't come and support my business. My own family told me not to do it. My own family told me it was risky. Sure, it's risky. And that's one of the things about, Lamborghini. He knew it was going to be risky. And I'm going to get into some of these things that he gets into, but it's a very inspirational story. It ends up a little bit not as inspirational, but the hustle, the vision that he had, the perseverance that he had to create Lamborghini was amazing, right? So anyways, the father looks at him with his lenses, right? His lens is, we are farmers. Don't get outside of the box of what you are. So Ferruccio, being a younger guy, going to other countries, being a part of, the military, going to war, being a mechanic, saw his vision expanded. His vision wasn't just pigeonholed to the farm. His vision was, I could do something bigger. I've seen bigger things, and I'm meant for more than what this is. And his father disagreed. So his father reluctantly kind of brushes him off, and Ferruccio leaves. And he's studying and he's drawing up plans and he's talking to his wife. And as he's talking to his wife, he realizes, I got to go out there and do this. And I'm going to talk to my father. So he talks to his father to mortgage the farm, right? So he gets the father to mortgage the farm. The wife tells him, no, you're not going to risk your father's money. You got to figure out how to get the money yourself, which I respect, right? The wife was concerned about him losing the money, and this is his father's farm. And matter of fact, Ferruccio even said that his brothers deserve that farm more than he does because they actually worked the farm and he was gone for a couple of years. Nevertheless, though, he uses the money. I was under the impression when I saw this, he's probably going to lose the money. It's good, because this very often happens in entrepreneurship. Let's face it. 95% of businesses fail within the first 3 years. That's just the stats when it comes to business. It's not easy to be an entrepreneur. I've had a lot more failures than I've had successes. But one of the things that I learned in business is that you fail your way to the top. Watson, one of the creators of IBM, was once asked, what is the key to success? And he said, you've got to double your rate of failure. Now, how do most people view failure? Most people view failure as a negative thing. Winners, entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs view failure as an absolute necessity for success, as a requirement for success. So anyways, he goes out there and he gets some money. And he starts and he finds a partner also from the military. And by the way, I heard that story of him starting with a partner wasn't true. I heard that was just part of the movie, but this is what happened in the movie. And they start building the tractor. They start designing it and they start saying, what if we use gas and we use something else? I don't know if it was petroleum or whatever the case may be. It was something else. It was two different things. That way, then they were mentioning how it wouldn't work because of this. They're like, what if we change this? They figured out how to do it with two different types of gas and whatever the other thing is. And so it's going to be cheaper. And it was half the size and also half the price, but it could do the same amount of work that the current tractor could do for half the size and half the price and more efficient with gas, right? So that's pretty damn good. Imagine half the size doesn't take that much size. It costs half the money and it's just as efficient. So he started doing it. Then he went out there and he bought this old tractor or vehicle, and they started building it together. They put the prototype together. They're painting it, and they got it, and it looks beautiful. And this is their prototype. So they put it to the test, and it works. But the money that he had used from his father was all but gone. It's like, okay, got it. We got up here. We've already figured out that we could create this. Now, how do we go and mass produce this? So now him and his partner and his wife are thinking, okay, we got the first round of money to get the business off the ground, but it takes more money to make more money, right? You got to go out there and figure out how do we get this to the next stage of business. And here's the deal. He started using, which is one of the philosophies of the book Think and Grow Rich, OPM, other people's money. He used his father's money. He invested in him. He now needed OPM again, right, to take it to the next level. Now, a lot of people in business, it's very often that we underestimate how much it's going to cost. I remember once opening up a student loan forgiveness call center. I went all out. I converted my office, and it was a decision. That's one of the things about entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs and winners. They take action on their decisions. They make decisions fast. Okay, let's go. They do their due diligence. And then if you're going to go, you're going to go. Let's go out there and take action. Let's go. Okay, one of my buddies, Jonathan Brunasso, was talking about on a training yesterday. He's saying it's a 5-second rule. If you spend more than 5 seconds thinking about it, let's say 5 seconds thinking about going to the gym, go to the gym. 5 seconds thinking about, should I make this phone call? Make the phone call. Take action. It's the philosophy of ready, fire, aim, right? Ready, fire, aim. Get ready, take action, aim later, but do something. Too many people are doing this. Aim, 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 aim. Practice, 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 right? And doing all of these things. Guess what? At the end of the day, successful people in general are just action takers, and they're not afraid to fail. Yes, listen, failure is a part of success. You want to know the recipe for success? There's a lot of factors to it, but one of the main recipes for success is failure. Matter of fact, imagine if success is a cake. You know what failure is? Failure is the eggs that go into the cake. You're not going to create a cake without a traditional cake, I'm talking about, right? You're not going to create a traditional cake without the eggs, right? It is an absolute necessity. And when you understand that, and he understood that, whether it's conscious or unconscious, whether it's the subconsciously or consciously, whether it's by accident or on purpose, failure is a part of success. And you learn more by failure than you do by success. So he walks into his bank and he has a picture, a magazine of the traditional tractor, which is a tractor that is being used all throughout Italy and a bunch of other countries. This is the standard, which is what he's replacing. This is the status quo. And he's saying, I could beat the status quo. I'm a farmer from Italy that was a mechanic in the army, and I can change the status quo. What is a standard tractor? I have a better one. So in the Colonel Sanders story, right, I'll briefly tell you, he went through 1,009 no's before he got a yes and KFC was born. So he understood failure is a part of success. So he goes to his banker and he has a magazine and he shows him the picture of the magazine and he tells a banker, he asks a banker, hey, listen, I forgot the banker's name. Hey, listen, so-and-so, if I can make this tractor half the size, half the price, just as efficient or more efficient, will you help me? Will your bank help me buy 10,000 of these? Or will your bank help me produce 10,000 of these? The banker proceeds to ask him, Ferruccio, do you have that tractor that you are saying already? And then the next scene, it cuts to him seeing the tractor. Long story short, the bank says, you got something good here. OPM, other people's money. The Science of Getting Rich talks about OPM, other people's money, talks about OPI, other people's ideas, OPE, other people's efforts, right? Other people's experience as well. In other words, this is called leverage. You don't got the money, great, but you've got the idea. You've got the skills. Go and find somebody that's got the money. That's why one of the attributes of successful people is that they know how to sell. They're persuasive. Their communication skills are good. The better your communication skills are, the more persuasive you are. Now you couple that with salesmanship, which if you have those two things, you've got a level of salesmanship. But he was able to sell people. Here's the deal. We are selling since we are kids. When you are a kid, you are selling. You are selling, you are selling, you are selling. You're selling your parents when you go to the checkout area if you want a candy and you're selling them on if they'll get you a candy or not, right? So what he does is he asks them, hey, listen, will you buy 1,000 of these? 10,000 of these, 10,000 of these. Cuts to the next scene, boom. Now he gets the next round of money, which is he already proved that he could do it. Now that I proved that I could do it, what is the next hurdle? The next hurdle is to get more money. So why? Because he didn't have enough money from his father's ranch to produce 10,000 of these. So he went to the bank. He got the money, and the guy became a super successful multimillionaire in the tractor business. Okay, so now he's a wealthy guy. He went through years of trial and error, right? Figuring things out, because that's what you do. That's not only what you do as an entrepreneur, that's what you do in life. You figure things out. Here, let me give you a little side tip. I heard a long time ago, and I absolutely agree with this, and that's been the case in my life. 95% of the things that we worry about don't ever come to pass. 95% of the things that you worry about, lie awake at night worrying about, don't ever come to pass. Most people spend a lot of time in their life worrying about things that they've got no control over. And most of the time, those things don't come to pass. So they say worrying is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it gets you nowhere. Anyways, I don't know why. I felt like I had to share that with you, right? But I think, actually, I do know the reason why. The reason why is because A lot of people are not very successful because they spend too much energy and time on worrying. And then later on, they realize I shouldn't have worried about it so much. And a lot of times they're worrying about things that they, again, have no control over. So he becomes a very wealthy guy, multimillionaire, crushing it. And he loves sports cars, exotic cars, beautiful cars. So he's got a collection. He's got multiple Ferraris. He's got Maseratis. He's got the Mercedes. He's got the Porsche, I think. He's got a couple different beautiful cars, right? Guy's a multimillionaire. But he notices that there's a lot of flaws in these cars, and he's a mechanic. Now, granted, he builds tractors, not sports cars, granted, but we should also keep in mind that the sports cars from back in the days are not like the sports cars now, right? That was 70 years ago, whatever the case may be, 50 to 70 years ago. But here's what happens. He goes one day, and some guy from another company comes and says, hey, man, I heard I already went to Maserati and I went to this other company, and they didn't want to hire me. But, and by the way, Ferruccio was working on a car. I think it was a Ferrari. So this guy he's a mechanic as well. And he's giving him advice on what he should do to fix a Ferrari. And Ferruccio is talking to him. And the guy says that basically he's there for a job. So Ferruccio starts asking questions. They have a good conversation back and forth. And then the guy didn't even realize that Ferruccio was the owner of Ferrari. He thought he was just one of the workers. And Ferruccio tells him, he introduces himself as Ferruccio Lamborghini. This guy goes, oh, you're the owner. And long story short, he hires him, right? So then he says, come with me. So they go to a location that he knew that Enzo Ferrari, the creator, the founder of Ferrari, would be, Enzo Ferrari. And he goes to Enzo. He finds him coming outside. He's getting inside his car with his driver, right? Obviously, another very rich guy. And he says, Mr. Ferrari, if I could have a minute with you. My name is Ferruccio Lamborghini. I don't know if you know who I am. And he says, yes, I know who you are, the tractor guy. He says, yes, I got to tell you, you make the most beautiful cars in the world. In my opinion, you make the best car in the world. So Ferruccio's like, oh, thank you. But he's not very impressed. You know, in the movie, they portray him to be a little arrogant, right? But he says, thank you, right? And he says, however, there's one thing that I'd like to mention, one critique I'd like to mention to you. He says, one of the problems that I have with just about any car and with yours as well is the clutch. The clutch always goes out. The clutch is no good. And I feel that it can improve. So Enzo tells him, you stick to building tractors. Don't criticize my cars. I know what I'm doing. So Ferruccio says, well, I believe that you can make it better. And I'm just trying to help. If you're open to some kind of partnership, he goes, Ferrari, Enzo. Now, that in itself, that takes some guts, right? That takes some balls to tell Ferrari, hey, partner up with me, right? Granted, he's a successful guy, but he's in the tractor business. So Ferrari says, hey, farmer, stick to your tractors. So he just brushes him off, rude. And then as he's walking away, Ferruccio tells him, hey, listen, for the price that people pay for the Ferrari, you're not giving them a good service. Basically what happened is that the same clutch, I believe it was the same clutch that is used in some of the common tractors was the same one that was used on a Ferrari. And back then a tractor was like $10 and a Ferrari was like $1,000 back in those days, right? So it's a huge difference, right? I believe that's 100-fold difference, and it uses the same parts. So he says, you're not doing right by your customers if you don't improve this, right? So the guy brushes him off, Enzo brushes him off, drives away. So this guy stays there, and his other his new employee comes in and says, yeah, man, I always thought the guy was a bit of an asshole, but he just confirmed right now that he is an asshole. And this guy's thinking, he says, you know what I need to do? What? And he says, I'm going to create a supercar. I'm going to go and compete with this guy. So now he makes it his mission, the way he made it his mission, to become the #1 in tractor sales, to change the world in tractor sales at the time. He says, I'm going to go out there and do that in the sports world because Enzo Ferrari brushed him off. So he built a chip on his shoulder. And I believe from the beginning, since he was young, before the tractor business, he had a chip on his shoulder, partly because of his family not believing in him. Now even bigger. Enzo Ferrari, this guy's like, hey, man, I'm a loyal customer of yours. I got multiple cars of yours. I'm just trying to give you some advice. Why don't you fix, the clutch? Why don't you guys do a better job with the clutch? I can personally attest to building a business with a chip on my shoulder. I think to some people it benefits them and to some people it doesn't. I've seen some of the best entrepreneurs in the world have a chip on their shoulder, and because of that, they're more competitive, they're more diligent, right? They work harder, they try harder. And I think that's what happened with him. That happened with me. I had a chip on my shoulder because a lot of people didn't believe in me. A lot of people said, oh, that guy's a failure. That guy's this, that guy's that. He's never going to be successful, right? I had people challenge me throughout my life and didn't believe in me, friends, family members and whatnot. And that developed a chip on my shoulder. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, that chip on my shoulder personally helped me out to go out there and succeed at higher levels than they thought I could succeed in, and frankly, even higher levels than I thought I could succeed in. So I can attest to building with a chip on your shoulder. Of course, I think there's benefits to it. I think there's also some cons to it, right? I think, there's a fine balance between the two. But you could tell. He looked at him and took that in and said, I'm going to go and compete with this guy. And compete with that guy he did. So now what does he do? OPE, other people's experience, other people's efforts, other people's ideas, OPI, other people's ideas. He goes and hires he hired 3 employees, former employees from Ferrari. He hires some employees from Maserati, some employees from Mercedes, right? So he hires them and he says, we've got to build a better car than what's out there. And there was a big competition coming up. Definitely not doable in 6 months. He says, it is doable. You know why? Why? Because we will make it doable. Because we will get it done. See, he didn't take no for an answer. So he got them to start working. So then three experts tell him it's not doable, he starts to ask questions. He starts to say that it's doable. What if we do this? What if we do that? Then you start to see them come together and say, well, it might work if we do this. And it might work if we do that. And he's talking about the designs and about the engine and about different things. And they tell him again, that's impossible. That can't be done. He says, yes, it can be done. So they start spitballing and throwing out there. And then you start seeing these other 3 guys start to engage. That to me was very telling. The reason why that was very telling to me is because your proximity, your environment has so much to do with your mindset and with your identity. When you start to get around people that are leveling up to another place, you start to level up to another place. It's just proximity. Proximity is so key. I say this all the time in my podcast. I say this all the time in my videos and in my trainings. You hang out with 5 bums, 5 broke bums, you're going to be the number 6 broke bum. But if you hang out with 5 winners, guess what? You're going to be number 6. It's proximity, man. So these guys were not used to getting pushed to those limits. We're not used to thinking outside the box as much as he is. This is another breed. So they start to come together. So then he starts to work on the logo. And he's at an art show. And at the art show, he sees this beautiful picture of this bull and a matador, right? And he sees the bull, and that happens to be a zodiac sign. And as he's saying, I'm going to create something that's going to compete with, that's going to be the number 1 car in the world. He says, I'm going to create the number 1 car in the world. It's going to be the number 1 car in the world. Not one of them, but the number 1. And it's going to be as fierce and as strong as a bull. And he's in the art show looking at this picture of the bull. He's there with his wife. And that, again, happens to be a zodiac sign. So he starts the design. He's on a napkin at a club one day, like at a bar with some music, and he's drawing on a napkin. Everybody's dancing, having a good time. This guy's, and by the way, he was young at the time, right? He was probably in his 40s, right? So it's not like he's some old dude. And he's dressed sharp to the nines, and he's at this club. He's waiting for his wife to get there. And there's music dancing there, and he's right there, obsessed. He's got a napkin, and he's drawing the bull on the napkin. That's one of the attributes of people as well. When other people are having fun, these people are focused. When other people are chilling, these people are working. When other people are thinking of, the game, these people are thinking about their ideas, their business. I tell people there's 3 ingredients. You got to lie, cheat, and steal. You got to lie awake at night thinking of the possibilities, thinking of who you're going to help, thinking of the next idea. You got to cheat some time away from some of your hobbies. Sometimes you got to cheat some time away from your family. And you got to steal. You got to steal every good idea, right? Unfortunately, this obsession for him became unhealthy because he started having problems with his family. He didn't see his wife that much. His wife ended up divorcing him, which happened to be his second wife. Another note about the story, which is kind of very sad. His first wife passed away, giving birth to his first child. But his relationship with his son didn't work out because he was spending so much time. And the wife even told him, his second wife says to him, what else do you want? We've got money. We've got success. Why are you spending so much time in this? Which I personally agree with the wife. Me personally, I work 4 days a week, about 6 hours a day. I spend the rest of my time with my family, right? To me, personally, at this point in my life, it isn't about money first, even though money is important and we're always making more. But to me, I want learning from stories like this for me help me out to not forget what's important. I've got 2 young kids personally. I want to watch them grow up. Anyways, getting back to the story. So he's drawing this bull. This lady, this beautiful girl, is attracted to him. And then some singer on stage gives him a shout out, right? And he's famous around Italy. So this girl that's probably like half his age, very beautiful girl, sees him in his 20s. She's in his 20s, sees him, says, oh, you're Lamborghini. He says, yes, have a seat. Now, mind you, his wife is on the way. So have a seat. So he starts talking to her and he shows her the napkin. She says, what are you drawing? And he shows her the napkin. He says, what do you see? She says, I see lines on the paper. And then he draws like eyelashes on the, what's it called? The lights, the front lights, right? And he says, this here is the best car that will ever be created. She just sees some lines on a paper, some drawing. He sees the best car in the world. He's obsessed. That design that he made there with the eyelashes was the next Lamborghini that they debuted. Okay. Until this day, that is known as the most beautiful car ever created. The Mauricia, or so, I don't know how to pronounce it, right? We'll put a picture here on here. The point is, he was obsessed. Finally, the Geneva show comes in. His first Lamborghini debuts. And you've got Ferrari there looking at this and his car is covered. Then he says before they unleash the car. No, after they unleash the car. So he's, talking it up and then they unleash the car. Everybody's in awe. Even the Ferrari owner is over there paying attention and sees like, wow, that's a beautiful car. And he says the famous line. He says, a Ferrari is a car that you buy when you want to be somebody. He says a Lamborghini is what you buy when you are somebody, right? Which is a great line, right? And I love both cars. I think the same is true for both, right? But the point is, he's very confident about it. It debuted, did great. He invested so much money, which is another business lesson. He invested so much money into Lamborghini that it gets to a point where he's spreading himself too thin. And he said, my workers, I treat them well. They're not gonna strike against me if things go wrong because there was a lot of problems. Some recession hit. Just a lot of things happened in the economy that were very bad. There was a problem with oil. So tractor sales slowed down. And in a recession like that, the first things that stop getting bought are luxury things. In this case, luxury cars. So he got pushed out to the point that he had to sell his tractor business and he sold it. He had to sell 51% of Lamborghini and he sold it. Eventually, he ended up selling the whole thing. Lamborghini since then has been sold multiple times, probably like 4 or 5 times. Chrysler owned it at one point, and I don't know who owns it right now. It might be Volkswagen that owns it now. And now, since the 90s, Lamborghini's really hit its stride. Since the 90s. I thought it was a lot longer than that. But since the 90s when it really hit its stride. And so he ended up selling and he focused on the farming business, right? He went back to farming, ideally, right? But now as a rich guy, right? He still was rich and his employees did turn on him. When it comes to that right there, here's the thing. Jim Rohn says the same wind blows on us all. The wind of disaster, the wind of change, the wind of recessions, the wind of market changes. That happened to him. I've learned in my young life, because as an entrepreneur at 39 years old, I've experienced a lot as a 39-year-old. I've been through where I've become a millionaire, lost it, became a millionaire, lost it, did it again. And it's not easy. And one of the things that people tend to do, especially when they're very ambitious, they tend to sometimes, like he did, and I've done this as well, spread themselves too thin. Like, hey, I got it, spread myself too thin. And I think there's something to say about having reserves, about having multiple streams of income, about it's great to be ambitious, but there is such a thing as being too ambitious at sometimes. You've got to mix the drive, and this is my opinion, you've got to mix the drive with some logic as well. It's not to say to not be driven and not take risks, but take calculated risks. That's what I got from the movie at the end. There's some scenes in there. It starts from the beginning where, and it's metaphorical, where Enzo is in his Ferrari, Ferruccio is in his Lamborghini, a red Ferrari and a blue Lamborghini, and they're about to race. They're at a stoplight, they're about to race. And this is all, it's just an example, right? It's a race. And then the movie goes, and then they're racing. And Enzo is always in front, but Ferruccio with the Lamborghini is catching him up. And then they're turning, and it seems like Ferruccio's catching him up, and then Enzo keeps going, keeps beating him. So I'm under the impression at the end, Ferruccio's going to win with the Lamborghini. And then it's basically a metaphor for the way the story went, where he was catching up to him. It seemed like he was going to do good. And then finally, Ferruccio in the Lamborghini spins out. And Ferrari, boom, keeps going. It spins out around the time that the recession hit. Ferrari was ready for it because they have more finances. Their focus, or their main focus, was Ferraris. This guy was in the tractor business and in this business. He took a lot of business and equity from the tractor business to fund Lamborghini, right? And it ended up going bad. So that's when he spins out again. And then there's another scene where they're right there at the stop sign again, yet again. And Ferrari takes off. And Lamborghini just doesn't hit the gas, just stays there. And that was showing when he lost the company. When he sold his tractor business, he sold 51% of Lamborghini, and then eventually he sold the entire thing. Now he doesn't own it. His son went out to open, I think his son has like a luxury watch business, and it's called, Tonino Lamborghini, if I'm not mistaken. And so, but at the end of the day, the son asked him, he said, "Father, was it worth it? You made all this money, you achieved a lot of success, but you lost your family in the process, and then it ended up this way." I think the guy still died rich, right? But nevertheless, he sold both companies, all of both companies, and he lost his family. In my opinion, it wasn't worth it. My opinion, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of lessons, a lot of leadership lessons, a lot of entrepreneur lessons in that movie. At the end of the day, I give that movie out of 5 stars. I give it 4.5 stars. I think it was a great movie. It wasn't a high budget movie, but it looked like a high budget movie. So not only is this some lessons, but it's also a movie review. I recommend. I mean, if you watch this entire episode, I give you a bunch of spoilers. You'll still enjoy the movie. I think you'll see it with a different perspective after watching this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm going to do more reviews on entrepreneur movies like this. If you guys know some movies, entrepreneur movies that you would like me to comment and do a video on, please go ahead and let me know. And remember, the KFC story, make sure you guys click up here to watch that KFC story, which relates a little bit, very similar in some areas to the story that we just shared today. So with that being said, guys, JC Rangel, I'll see you guys at the top or from the top. Take care.